Built Differently, Built Different podcast. Ricky Alphonse, CEO of Extropian, again joined by Justin, by Sean. You guys remember them both from the last episode, and on this episode, we're pleased to be joined by Raul from Avoid Media. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Avoid Media and kind of media.
Hey everybody, my name is Raul. Like Ricky said, I'm coming from Avoid Media, and I'm helping out as sort of part of the marketing team for Extropian. I'm part of a two-man team that Ricky hired to help with sort of the creative process and branding, and then also content and graphic design. So a lot of the stuff that you guys will be seeing coming out.
I kick a hole in the speaker full of plug, then I jet.
We might see. We lost Ricky there for a second, but he's back. Anything from Sensei or from Extropian? We should see coming from me. I should be involved. Yeah, that's sort of where Agora's footprint is.
Job. We're obviously did a rebrand. You guys are going to see some really incredible things from the media. We have a great show for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, Adrian will be able to join the second founder of Agora, and he'll be able to join maybe next week's content or the week after, so stay tuned. But Ricky is completely right. We have a really cool show for you guys today. We're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty of some of what we talked about in last week's episode. So I remember, from what I understood, there are some barriers, there's some challenges to people who are in combat sports. There are some things that they struggle with, some realities that aren't perfect, right? So we try to address those and talk about them in this podcast, and also in an article that Justin's working on. So be on the lookout for that as well. This conversation will turn into sort of a written article. But part of what we're talking about today is athletes and fighters training in as healthy of a way as possible, and what that means, and how they're currently training, and how we could be better about it. So in general, I kind of want to open the floor to you guys to talk about maybe how these sort of training camps work, and how they're connected to the rising popularity of these sports, right?
Sure.
So UFC, I mean, it's gotten big. MMA in general has gotten big, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the weight cutting issues, kind of played themselves out on last week's fight card, with Hamzat. And I think there's there's kind of the side of the story where there's a fighter that's willing, as a fighter that, you're built to do whatever it takes to get into the ring, or the octagon. And you saw that with Hamzat last week, that he was, willing to, bypass the doctor's orders and continue cutting weight. But it's something, we want to address, not really address, but talk about in this podcast. Our technology is going to be addressing the, that issue, and hopefully helping these guys and girls out. Because at the end of the day, we want the, the best performing, healthiest, safest athlete out there. And as fans, we want to see the best performances. So, that's kind of the goal of this today's podcast. And yeah, we just kind of want to go from there and talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
just to add on to what Ricky and Raul were saying, combat sports is growing in popularity. Boxing is still a very popular sport. MMA and other forms of combat sports are growing in popularity. They're trained and competed all around the world. And despite that, there's still generally kind of a lack of technology usage, lack of modern methods to a lot of what they do. And for people who are cutting weight, specifically, that's one thing that combat sports has that a lot of other sports don't need to do is you have to cut weight down to a almost dangerous level sometimes to make your weight class that you're trying to fight in. And there's issues that come along with that, and we're hoping that over time we can change that standard and change how easy it is and how hard it is, and making it safer and healthier for those guys and girls to do that.
So I think this is an important thing to talk about, just because I think that the diehard combat sports fans, I feel like they have a pretty good understanding of what like weight cutting is and the dangers and stuff. But since combat sports has grown so much over the last 20 years or so, there's a lot of like casual fans that don't really they don't really see that kind of side of the sport. They don't really see like the kind of like the physical sort of toll that comes with cutting weight, or like the mental sort of struggles, or like the financial issues that come with cutting weight, or like missing weight and things like that. So I think it's important to kind of sort of bring that aspect into the light a little bit for people, just so they understand what's actually going on and why we're trying to do what we're doing.
For sure. Raul is on mute.
Sorry about that. And in terms of some of the fighters that you guys have seen recently, they've dealt with sort of unhealthy weight cuts, and that might not necessarily lead to a more successful career. That's something that we found, correct?
Yeah, there's instances, and that's why I've loved the sport for such a long time, because it's like seeing people train and preparing for this about 6-week, 8-week training camp, and seeing the progression, if they're striking, for instance, or seeing them basically whittling their body down to make this weight class. It's all part of the game. It's part of like Justin mentioned, a diehard combat sports fan. What they look at. The fight really begins at the scale when these guys and girls weigh in, and if they do it correctly, and they're healthy, a lot of times that parlays into a win on fight night. If a guy or girl doesn't do it correctly, it could result in a loss. And we've seen that with, high profile fights where, the main fighter looks a little lethargic, or they're not, everybody's like, what's wrong with them? Or they have an off day. A lot of times that is their weight cut, a bad weight cut. They do have, everybody has off nights, but, a lot of times that is attributed to their weight cut. So yeah, it's not necessarily always, it's not always, cutting a large amounts of weight isn't always the route that some of these guys and girls go, to ensure success. So, yeah, we really wanted to, kind of be a tool that allows them to do this in a safer manner. Like, there needs to be some form of a visual aspect of what's going on with their body, because right now it's just very, eye test or pinching the skin, or, I think now one is doing urine tests, testing urine for dehydration. But yeah, there needs to be a deeper tool and deeper analysis, and yeah, the fighters should be, throughout fight week when they're cutting that weight, they should be a way for them to manage this in a more efficient way, in a more practical way.
Absolutely. It looks like from what we've seen, the average weight cut can be anywhere from around 15 to 20 pounds. And there's a right way to do that and a wrong way to do that. Absolutely. Hopefully, with the technology that Extropian is developing, fighters and athletes in general are able to do it the right way. But I did want to talk to you guys a little bit about maybe the bigger picture of professional fights and how those look before we get into the nitty gritty of how everyone can benefit from healthier weight cuts. So at the professional level, is there any light that you guys can shed on how professional fighters see weight cuts and whether that affects things like injuries and wins?
Actually, I think we were looking at an article recently best fights in the last, I think it was like 2 or 3 years. I was expecting like more fighters that had missed weight to have more wins, but I think it was slightly less than that. If I remember correctly. Is that right, Raul?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of times I feel like in the back of people's mind, when someone misses weight and is over the fight weight, there's almost like a obvious advantage at play. But the reality is, only 46% of fighters who missed weight won their fight. So we started talking, and the reality is that at the professional level, at least, making weight is a discipline thing more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is, but that's another reason maybe for the monitoring as well. There's a lot of outside influence on the weight cut as well. So obviously a woman that's going through a menstrual cycle has been an issue with weight cutting in the past. So that's what we believe, that it just needs to be a smarter process, and we believe we're that tool to make it happen. Like I said, a lot of outside influences could affect that weight cut, and yeah, as long as people are able to monitor that, and it's essentially them getting to know themselves even better than they do. In the world now, we track so many different things that why not make the weight cutting process part of that? It's essential to the fight. It could be the meaning between a win and a loss, or even being knocked out, or even God forbid, severely being injured or hurt. So I think that's an important thing. One of the things that we want to focus on is allowing people to kind of know themselves and know a little bit better about what's happening during their weight cut, and being a tool that nutritionists and doctors can even monitor these athletes, so they're getting the best out of their bodies.
Absolutely. And when professionals miss weight, we know that it can have some pretty big consequences. For those that may not be in the know in the combat sports world, definitely I would know. But for those who don't, could you let the world know a little bit about how recent UFC fights were altered by missing weight?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Sean.
I mean, just this past weekend was UFC 279, and that was arguably one of the biggest effects of a missed weight ever. UFC normally does not change change the card around, especially at the last minute. Like if something happens to one fighter, they have replacements on deck ready to go. But instead of doing that, when Khamzat Chimaev missed weight, they changed 3 of the fights and shuffled around the opponents so that he could fight someone that was at the weight that he was at, because he missed it by 7.5 pounds. So that's not usually when you see a missed weight, it's 3 pounds, 4 pounds, like 4 pounds would be pretty extreme miss. 7.5 is off the charts. At that point, you're almost missing weight for the class above you at that point. So yeah, it was definitely a crazy miss. I think the UFC did a very good job of handling it, and making those adjustments, and ultimately the fights actually did turn out pretty well, and they were exciting to watch.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's big that was the biggest change, but it's also affected the some championship fights in the past. And I'll let Ricky elaborate on that a little bit.
So I think one of the last ones, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, was Charles Oliveira losing his title on the scale. And
Yep.
when that happens as a fight fan, it takes away from the hype and the how excited you are about the fight. And this it's happened several times. The thing with obviously for those that don't know, on the championship level, you have to be spot on. So if you fight at 170, you got to be at 170 on the nose. You could be, I think, a pound and a half over, I believe, or a pound over for non-championship fights. So there's a little leeway there. But yeah, in the case of Charles Oliveira, he's now having to refight for his belt and pick that back up again. The belt was up in the air after his last win, and now luckily we have an excellent matchup for the belt. But it's kind of you like to see a guy go in with his belt or a girl going into the fight with their belt in hand and not lose it at the scale. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Justin. You can elaborate on that.
Oh no, I was just gonna say one other consequence of Chimaev missing weight this past weekend was since they had to shuffle everything around. He Jing Wang, he got an entirely new opponent that was at a different weight class as originally scheduled to fight. So like something
Yeah,
has like far consequences that don't just affect the fighter themselves in this way. And I know this is kind of like a unique circumstance, but going forward, it could change someone else's career by fighting someone else that they were planning on fighting at a different weight class.
yeah. Li Jiang Liang, he definitely got the short end of the stick there, but overall, I mean, the fight card, like Sean said, they did an excellent job. The UFC is shuffling things around, and from the fans' perspective, we it was an enjoyable card. But yeah, um, the lack of tools and things to any type of system to kind of observe the weight cutting process. I mean, the ramifications are huge from the fighter losing their purse. I think they get 25%. Lose 25% of their purse to their opponent. Their opponents, you know, decides to carry on with the fight. In boxing, I think there's a negotiation that takes place backstage. If I don't think there's. It depends on the commission. I'm not sure, but I think that they, the opponents between the opponents to kind of agree on a how much of their purse they're going to give to the opponent that made weight. So yeah, it's got huge ramifications for fighters, and for fight fans. If a fight's canceled, obviously, that's a very negative thing that also filters down to an organization. Maybe you don't sell as many pay-per-views. Maybe some of those tickets are refunded. Maybe essentially even the arena could lose out on maybe some beer money or t-shirt sales or the ticket sales. So it's like Justice said, it has it's like a snowball effect. So yeah, if you could definitely monitor these things and have a smarter way of going about this. Yeah, a lot of those other areas that are affected and that trickle down effect won't be as prevalent, I guess you would say.
I also know that if you miss weight, you become ineligible for a fight. I didn't know that until researching this topic. Oh, that was kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah, very interesting. I didn't know that either.
Yeah. And there's since the beginning of 2020, there's been 40 fights just like this where someone has missed weight. So it's interesting to think about just how many fights could have gone differently, in an alternate universe, so to speak. There's, like Ricky said, there's quite a lot of reasons why people cut weight, and there's also quite a lot of different ways that people end up cutting weight or missing weight. I wanted to hear a little bit about if you guys had any thoughts on when fighters end up having to cut more weight than they're used to or more weight than they normally do, and sort of the challenges behind that versus maybe smaller weight cuts.
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, everybody knows that there's the advantage that guys and girls want to gain over their opponents is in the form of strength. So a lot of these fighters they will cut. Say for instance you're a 200, you walk around at 205 pounds, you might cut down to the 170-pound weight class, or maybe 185, and you want that strength advantage, and that tends to be the typical route that most of these fighters take is looking for that strength advantage and rehydrating back to your to your normal walk around weight or closer to it on fight night. It's kind of a strategic thing that these guys and girls do, but sometimes it just goes to the extreme where they're just completely cutting way too much weight and like basically putting themselves at harm and going too far with the weight cut for the strength advantage. It doesn't it doesn't add up. You know what I mean? It doesn't. The juice isn't worth the squeeze, I guess you would say, for them to do that. So unfortunately, that happens way too often, also, and it may rid us of some of the some better fights from these fighters because they're fighting at that low weight class. 'Cause, there is times where you see them go into another, go up a weight class, and man, they look amazing. They look healthier. They look they're not as lethargic. Their gas tank is better. Um, and I think being able to monitor, like have some sort of form of system that shows you what how you're looking at these different weight classes or when you cut weight versus if you cut less weight, what your performance looks like. Um, and that way you have a better assessment of like, man, I can do damage at this weight class versus cutting all this weight to get down to this weight class. The strength advantage really isn't, or the size advantage really isn't playing into how great I can be.
And
Absolutely.
just to echo on that. I mean, there's a big I think market for something that can help people determine their correct weight class. Because right now, you could train and based on whatever your walk around weight is, they'll have trainers that will suggest, okay, you should fight in this class or you should fight in that class. But the weight cut is different for every single person. Some people, it's going to be super easy. They can lose lots of weight very quickly. And then other people, it's a struggle, and they're constantly teetering that edge of, am I going to make weight this time or am I not? And eventually what you see happening, especially as fighters get a little older, is that it's harder to lose that weight the older you get. So some guys who used to fight at light heavyweight might move up to heavyweight and say, you know what, I might not be, as dominant in that division based on, the strength per pound basically, but they'll have the advantage of the experience that they've had, and they prepare for a different weight class. So knowing what weight class you're in is important because it helps you know how you need to prepare and how your strengths are going to match up against the people that you're going to have to go up against.
There's so many different actual cases that we can all think of. A fighter that's so dominant in one weight class, but then you see them try to go down a weight class, or you try to do something else, and then it's like you can tell it's just not the same fighter. Like the first thing that I think of is DJ Dillashaw when he went down to flyweight. I don't know if you guys saw the like documentaries and stuff of his training camp, but he was killing himself to get to 125, and then when you saw him, he was not the same guy, And then there's Charles Oliveira. There's so many other fighters that it's like when they were fighting at a lower weight class, it wasn't the same, but then they moved up and now like they're world beaters,
And there's examples of the other way too. I mean, when Israel Adesanya moved up, he was he's still dominating his weight class at 185, and he moved up to fight at 205, and he just didn't, because that's about probably near his walk around weight, Ricky, right? What'd you say, or maybe even a little bit above his walk around weight?
Yeah, it's probably close to his walk around weight, I would say.
Izzy's a
So
big.
a lot of the what?
Izzy's a big guy.
Yeah, but you saw when he fought there that a lot of those other guys, they're cutting to 205, so their walk around weight is 230, and on fight night it was like the dominant guy that we see at middleweight was not the same guy that was fighting at light heavyweight.
I can appreciate it though as well. It's like on one aspect he's not putting his health on the line from like he's going like I would much rather see a guy go or a girl go up than down essentially. So in his regard, the performance may not have been there. Maybe the size difference. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him go up again and try it. You know what I mean? He was striving for greatness, so I can appreciate it. But yeah, it could be the case where he's maybe that's just not his weight class. Maybe 185 is his weight class. But yeah, that's what was so intriguing about him and John Jones. If they would have been able to make that fight, but it's almost like they're kind of the same body type. That kind of long, lanky guy, but Jones walking around before he was cutting the 205 was way bigger than Izzy was on fight night at 205. Going up to 205. So yeah, it's a balance that people have to figure out, and a lot of it is done using the eye test, or like I feel this way, I feel that way. There's no real set way, no smart way of doing it. Everything is eyeballed. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say I feel like you could say the same thing like about Conor. Like he's a really notable example. Like he started at featherweight, right, at 145. He was a world beater.
You said Conor?
Knocking out everyone, and then he started going up in the bigger weight classes and bigger guys. And his left hand is just not the same anymore,
Yeah, that's another good example. Yeah, it's a balancing act, man. But Conor has the luck of being a breadwinner, really, like one of the top guys. So he's not going to be impacted financially. Other guys and girls that aren't on the financial scale or the popularity scale of McGregor, it could mean losing their job, being kicked out of an organization. So McGregor has the luxury of kind of doing that and testing himself, and maybe Adesanya can do that, but you have a up and coming guy or girl, and yeah, their performance could really struggle, and that might be the end of their UFC career, or box, maybe an organization in boxing drops them or something.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think
Sorry, Sean.
I think recently you've seen a lot more emphasis on the 2-belt champions, or even the 3-belt champions. So that's why I think a lot of some of these champions who really at this point don't have anything to lose, or are trying to go up or go down and try to compete at a different weight class just to test themselves and kind of cement their legacy, I would say. But that is a lot different than someone who's just starting out, or someone who's like Ricky said, an up and coming person, because they it's especially hard, and not everyone's going to come in and have an undefeated record. But if you do have that undefeated record, and you do have that reputation of like, oh, this guy's never been knocked out, or this girl's never been submitted, trying to keep that, and a wrong weight class could cause you to get your first loss much quicker than if you're in the right.
Yeah, another good test of this, I guess you would say, would be John Jones and how he's going to look at heavyweight. I'm very interested in seeing that. The amount of muscle he's put on, is it going to impact his speed? Is he going to, is he going to be, is the muscle going to be functional for fighting against the big guys up there, at 255, 260. I can't wait to see because I imagine I'm going to be interested as well. Is he going to cut, or is he just going to stay, stay at what he walked around at? Because I believe, like from what I've seen, he's probably 250, 260 now. But that is a case I really want to see how that goes. Because I mean, he's bulked up. I mean, he was a big guy to begin with, but I mean, he's a really big guy now, and he's been training his butt off, and I've been watching, following his training routines, and man, he's putting. I mean, it's a lot of muscle. It's a lot of muscle that he's putting on. So I'm really, really interested to see how that experiment goes.
Yeah. A lot of professionals, oftentimes they can make. I've noticed they can make those transitions, those weight cuts, and whatnot because they have access to those higher level analytics, those higher level pieces of information that let them, like Sean mentioned earlier, really find where they fight best at, and then from there they can then choose to challenge themselves at different weight classes. But I guess the secret to that would be how can we bring that sort of technology, that sort of information to the masses, right? So we can't not too much, obviously, but
Yeah, I mean that's why we're here, and that's what we're here for. That's our goal at the end of the day, and we want to be for everybody, for the 5 or 6 year old that's starting karate and wants to monitor and measure themselves and test themselves, to the professional, you know legend, somebody that's about to retire. We're a tool for everybody, and we we're unique enough of a product that whatever your goal is as an athlete, as a fighter, um, our goal is to make even better than that, and for you to see that, and for you to build confidence through what you're seeing. We all have limits. We all have some type of limit that we put on ourselves, or that people have told us, or maybe an opponent's told you. But yeah, we don't believe in limits at this company, and that's what we're here for, is to help you push past those limits and be the best version of yourself. You may not be competing against your opponent. You're really being the best version of yourself a lot of times, and that's what we think we'll be bringing out. So not only the weight cut aspect of things, but also just your striking and just different areas of being a fighter. We're tapping into that with this technology, and yeah, we've already seen it, taking it out to the gyms. That when people see their information, it's really surprising. There's a lot of people that they thought they maybe were a stronger striker than somebody else, and then somebody goes up and uses our technology, and they're blown away that they're actually a more proficient, stronger striker than the other person. So there's a lot of insights that people will be able to gather, and probably some shocking details that you'll be able to see. But at the end of the day, the goal is you be the best version of you, and you'll be able to see that on a day-to-day basis. Going through a training camp, you'll be able to see your increase in performance. You could see that steady increase in everything that you're doing, and at the end of the day, that's the goal. As fight fans, we want to see the best. We always want to see the best matchups. We want to see the best performances, and that's what we're here for.
Not only the performance too, but we want to see people be healthy. We want to see them, not only for this fight, but for the next fight and their next 10 fights. We want to see these people have long success. We want to see everyone have a long, successful career, if that's what they're planning to do, or we want to make sure that everyone's doing it the right way and not hurting themselves or their career in the process of trying to make a weight that they're not supposed to make, or trying to drain themselves, or trying to fight when they're not when they shouldn't be medically cleared to fight. We want to make sure that your career as a fighter lasts as long as you want it to, basically.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the goal is to retire, and have a long healthy life with your kids, grandkids, and even after the fight game and after all the lights are out and you're not in the octagon or the ring and people aren't cheering for you anymore, you're the best parent or best son or daughter you can be, or whatever you choose to do after the sport, that you're in the best physical and mental condition to do so.
Absolutely. And in terms of those sorts of health consequences, there are some sorts of things that always pop up, these problems that these common issues that fighters end up having. I was wondering if you guys could maybe tell me a little bit about some of those common issues that a fighter might run into in a bad training camp or in a bad workout even. The kind of things that the kind of sort of health consequences that might come with that.
I mean, yes, if you watch a lot of these fights after the fact, guys and girls will say, I wasn't 100%. Or after a fight, they'll reveal like, well, I was fighting with a torn meniscus, or I had a broken arm or something like that, and I fought through it. Unfortunately, in combat sports, UFC, and MMA in particular, Bellator and all of these other MMA organizations, a lot of these guys and girls get paid to show up, so they'll basically fight through that injury and train through that injury or won't reveal it. And that's another aspect of the fight game that we believe we'll be able to help with through utilizing our tool. Because a lot of these guys and girls, there's days when maybe they're training, they should take the day off, or they should do maybe a different exercise or a different strength and conditioning method or regimen, I guess you would say, to build up maybe an area that's lacking or that's weak, or and a lot of times there's nothing for them to do that, so they end up injuring themselves in training camp, or they go too hard on something that they shouldn't have been going too hard on, and they have to fight with it. They pay for their training camp, they pay for their sparring partners and everybody and their coaches, and they want to pay them at the end of the day, so they got to get in there. But we're not here to change the fight game. We're not from the aspect of people aren't going to be able to fight because we're giving them these tools. Our tool is more I would say more preventative and more of a to give people insight to prevent the injury from happening in the first place. That's our goal, to build to that. And at the end of the day, that helps them get paid and helps their trainers and their sparring partners and everybody get paid because they train smarter and they avoided that injury. This unfortunate side of the fight game, though, is that people do go in with those injuries and it can decrease their stock as far as their next fight because they fought with an undisclosed injury and lost the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it too. If you think about it, there's a lot of stories of fighters that are passing out and having heat exhaustion or things like that while they're cutting weight, and then a doctor comes in and says, "Hey, you can't cut weight anymore," or they have to end up pulling out of the fight. So they don't get paid. And then you also have to think about their opponent. Their opponent also probably doesn't get paid, isn't able to get the same amount of money because the fight's not happening. And then on top of that, they have to. I think they have to pay for their own flights and stuff, like the travel to the flight. I don't know if the UFC pays for the travel expenses. I heard one story. I think it was tied to Iwasa. 2 weeks ago, he said UFC didn't cover his flight. That was kind of interesting, but things like that. If your opponent doesn't make weight and stuff, and they have to pull out, then you still have to pay your coaches. You still have to pay your training partners. You still have to pay for travel expenses and stuff. So it's like that ripple effect of when someone pulls out of a fight. It's it affects more than just the fighter themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely the financial aspect of it that that we believe that the utilization of what we're building, at the end of the day, it's gonna we believe it will have a better impact on their finances as well. Because, the ripple effect that Justin's mentioning, our goal is to help them avoid that. We feel like, other sports right now, their athletes are being observed and taken care of. And, the combat fighters right now, they really, because it's a very different business model from, NFL, NBA, we believe that, somebody has to look out for them. And that's, why we created this, a lot of the data points that we're creating with this tool, to be that, that company that looks out for them. We have a deep love for the fighters, for the fight game. And yeah, we want the best for everybody. So yeah, that's, another reason why we're doing what we're doing.
Absolutely. And whether it's to prevent, future injury and losing the opportunity for future paychecks, whether it's making sure that you make weight so that you get your current paycheck, right, to not get those penalties. A lot of times, health and income, they're the same thing when it comes to athletes who have to take care of their body. So it's going to be amazing to see how our technology can help with that.
For sure.
Absolutely. I wanted to open the floor up to you guys to see if there were any last thoughts on sort of how those moments before a fight, those weeks before a fight, how we might be able to, like Ricky said, not necessarily change them entirely, but improve upon them and make the fight game evolve. I just wanted to open up the floor if you guys had any last thoughts.
Yeah, I think like every other sport, they're evolving. They're using more data. They're using more analytics. They're doing things smarter. I think it's obviously time for combat sports now for fighters. And, a lot of us have friends that are fighters and, we hear the stories. As fans of the sport, we hear the stories. Some of us even train and or have trained and know what, these fighters go through. So, it's just time for us to bring an evolution to combat sports and these athletes. And I'll say it every time, it's a beautiful sport. A lot of people see the brutality of the sport, but it really is an art. It's an art form from the way that they move and, the new techniques that they use and try. And, so, our goal is to work with these athletes and to, show the rest of the world this, the beauty behind the sport. Show them what these guys and girls go through on a daily basis. There's a lot of the casual fans that don't know what all goes on with these fighters behind the scenes and, in preparation for training. I think there's a lot of stories that we could tell through our technology and through the data. So, at the end of the day, that's our goal. And, like we said, we want to for people to realize that they're absolutely limitless, and whatever ceiling or that they put on themselves, you can go beyond that, and that's our goal at the end of the day with this technology, and that's what we're gonna do.
I would just say something that I feel like our devices are really gonna help out with is just helping get to the fight, not like just get to the fight period, because one other aspect of the fight, what we're going to help with is, there's a lot of fighters that have missed opportunities because of they weren't able to make weight. I think as a fan of the UFC, I think the biggest one was Khabib and Tony, seeing how both of them missed weight I think it was Khabib that missed weight a couple times, and that prevented, one of the biggest matches in lightweight history. But there's a lot of other examples of maybe someone winning a title fight, but because they missed weight, it's like it puts like an asterisk on that win, and it's not quite the same thing. And so I feel like with our device and what we're working on, I feel like we can help kind of prevent those missed opportunities from happening for fighters, and so we can kind of, help them get their career on the right path that they actually wanted to be going down. But yeah.
I think that was well said by both of my counterparts on this podcast. I've got nothing else to say. They stole it all from me.
I will say this as well. There's obviously still a lot to reveal. We're staying like kind of high level with everything, but that's this content that's going to be put out. As Raul mentioned, Justin has an article he's been working on, and yeah, our plan is to bring in guests that can maybe tell a little bit more of a story of instances where they could have used our technology. So this conversation is going to continue. It's going to continue to evolve when we eventually release the product, release more information. I think more discussions are going to occur as well. I think there's a lot of, as we're testing this device, as we like to say, it's built by fighters, built by athletes. And part of that is collecting data and getting feedback. But I think as this process evolves, we'll have some studies done, we'll have some white papers done to kind of prove our thoughts behind this technology and all of the things that we mentioned on this call and the impact that we believe will have on the sport. We can, have visual and actual studies behind it to kind of show everybody how this is a game changer. So, we look forward to continuing the conversation. This is just the beginning. We kind of stayed a little surface level here, but we're going to get more in depth with this. We're going to get more data driven. And we're going to get, and sometimes more technical, but we can't wait to bring on guests to give kind of firsthand thoughts, people that have tried the technology. We can't wait to bring them on. So, they can share with the world how it's impacted them and how they believe it's going to enhance them as a fighter and as an athlete. So we're really looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, that has been an amazing episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Ricky, go ahead and sign us off.
Yeah, for Extropian, for Justin, for Sean, for Gourmet, Raul, I'd like to thank you guys for joining us again, spending time with us. Look forward to any comments, any suggestions. Look forward to you being on the show. And we're ready to reveal this dope tech in the near future. And we can't wait for everybody to use it. We can't wait for everybody to see it. We really think we're going to blow everybody's mind when they see this technology. Because so far, everybody that we've shown this to, everybody that's been able to take part in this, they're wowed by it. And we can't wait to wow the world and change the world through this technology. So, yeah, that's it, Raul. Ready to go.
Thank you, guys. Everybody.